Hello, hello. Welcome back to What Problem Are You Solving? The greatest innovation podcast on Monday nights ever. It's good to be back. Good seeing you guys.
Yes,
Have
sir.
you had a good week?
Mm, I'm trying.
I've had a week. Had a week.
Yeah, I'm trying. I need a job. I need a job. I got plenty of prospects, but I need a job. Anybody got a job? Need a job.
Somebody's got a
Just
job.
just ran out.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, anybody out there got a job? Just contact me and we'll talk. Thank you.
Adam, what problem are you solving this week?
But you want them to contact. You remember the Jerky Boys? You want them to contact you if they have an available job.
Yeah, the available job.
Not if they have a job, right? You know, there's a guy doing. He's looking for paint work. You ever hear that Jerky Boys episode from 25 years ago?
You boys, man. You're
Man, dude,
deep.
that's right. You're like, how old are you?
Keeps you guessing.
I guess we'll have to pull that one up, huh, John? I had to pull up. I need a job. You got a job? I want a job. I think.
Adam, what problem are you solving this
week? There
week?
you go. He asked you a question.
All right, I'm gonna answer a question with a question, but All right, so I'm solving the same problem, customer discovery, but I'm getting a little bit more specific. And I think the only piece that's really still broken is the analysis piece. People are doing interviews. There are resources about doing interviews well or observing observable behavior kind of stuff. The analysis piece is broken. And I'll ask you one question you can answer and then we'll move on. Do you agree that the only way to have a false positive, meaning you're stating a problem that does not exist, is if you're talking to the wrong people, you are doing it poorly, asking leading questions, or you're getting perfectly sound data and you're just ignoring it on purpose? Are those the only three ways to get a false positive from at the end? Not at the cohort. I did 100 interviews. I talked to one single interview. You either to get a false positive. So I'm even pre-qualifying the ways in which not in just a way, the one type of wrongness is either you talk to the wrong people, you ask the wrong questions, or you are just ignoring good data.
Or I would add one more fourth element. I love all three of those. The only one I would add is the sharpshooter effect, where the data you got is valid, but again, it's an outlier.
I'm okay with it. It's not a false. It's a false positive of the 10 of the cohort.
Right,
But
of
it's
the
not
cohort.
but I'm okay with that.
That's true. It is a positive, but it is an outlier positive.
I want to start looking at not even you seeing these programs with 100 interviews, and then it's all. I am at the individual interview level because bigger interviews lead to cohorts lead to decisions, and then decisions. Then at some point, someone needs to fund something. I don't think the funding based on, because then you are throwing a full business, like Ash said, you're throwing a full business model, you're doing a firm ES, you're talking to customers, you do have a product on that. All that stuff needs to be layered in. But I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to once and for all, after 10 years of pushing water uphill with this, if we can look at one interview and either if a bunch of mentors are on a call, not just saying, oh, yes, the cognitive bias.
Journey of 1,000 miles starts with one
give
step.
The starfish. I like the starfish. Didn't matter to that one. Although our friend in the government has an interesting starfish story. There's also a fun video of starfish spoof video. We'll show it. Oh, now I got my one that I get to show at the end. So we got. I'm good. I just solved my own problem. We're watching the starfish spoof video at the end in the post. Yeah, I want people to come in. I want startups. You submit your ground truth, like Mike talked about on that episode, which I think we got the second. Yeah, we did the second half of that eventually. That interview that's submitted, you either talk to the right person and ask bad questions. You either talk to the right person and ask good questions, And if you talk to the right person, ask good questions, and are drawing accurate conclusions from that data, all you have to do is repeat that. We have a number, right? The minimum is 5. We've talked about it on multiple.
Right.
So the minimum is 5, and the maximum is no more. You don't need 100 of the same cohort. You might need 100, eventually, but you don't need more than 20. So you have to do 5 or 10 proper conclusions at the interview level, not at the customer discovery cohort 100 interview level, because that's always cherry picked. So that's what we're doing on Thursday. Goodbye. I'm out. All right.
So I have a thought about that before we figure out what problem the two of us are solving. So you had 3 conditions that you preceded this idea of a false positive. Those 3 conditions came from a single person going into this conversation with another human, right? That's what you're telling me. It's one human to another human, not one human to like a whole, group, whatever. It's one human to one human. And that's all I'm asking. Those 3 conditions came from me as the human going to you as the human that I want to have some information about, which means that I've already preconditioned my brain to have some sense of what I want to learn. Right?
Yes.
Humans in utero, when they're in the belly, in the womb, have no differentiation between them and the mother. It's all the same. I have heat, I have food, I have laundry, I have all that stuff. When they come out of the uterus, they're trying to make sense of the world. And without adequate information, what's the first thing they do? They make it up. And then they behave as if it's real. And then they go into the process as we get older and older, gather more information without validation, without some reality testing. We behave, we make with others. And so that primary condition of, I don't know what the hell is going on, I'm just going to make some stuff up, and reality test is the same in my mind as the same 3 questions that the same 3 preconditions that you say will help you figure out whether or not you have a false positive. The question then becomes, before you even open your mouth, what's going on in your own head? What have you gotten to this point where you're like, I'm curious about something. Do some reality testing, even if it's a thought experiment, like whatever that means. And I think that's where coaches come in, because we become the intermediary between the human talking to another human. Like, are you listening to the words that are coming out of your mouth? No, I think you need to go back and check the words that are about to come out of your mouth, because they sound stupid. That's my thought. The bottom line is, all 3 of those, as John said, I like all 3 of those. I think they're all the same. They have all the same genesis with different root. And if you get to the root of the issue, which is I am making sense of an experience that I had, and I'm making it up.
I guess you're beating me I guess I have a preconceived notion that they are already going to have a fault. So is a group of experts enough who are judging them in real time, not just judging a business model or judging some arbitrary thing? This is what I loved about the innovation accounting call, where it was like some proxy for some future thing. And I think he mentioned the word fairness, where it's some objective, measurement. And so if you got a bunch of mentor-ish kind of, or even peers together, is the willful stuff coming from what you're talking about? Is it coming from investors? Basically, if there was a way to get the truth, would some founders actually want to hear it before, like, is there any slice of startupdom or founderdom where, because we see some people do kill ideas, like they do. So yeah, could we decrease what we know already to be fantasy? And is that healthy? Is that helpful for these programs? Does it create better founders in the long run? Does it create better programs? Does it create better workforce development programs? Or maybe we're wrong. Maybe customers, maybe the fantasy piece is necessary. I agree with you. Like, I'm not necessarily trying. I want to know the answer to that question, like, because then we shouldn't be doing the 100 interviews at all, right? If we know that we're just going to have the preconceived thought, then fine. Then at some point I'll admit that, and then we'll just go on to different funding models or different accelerators, or we'll work.
You're still chasing the.
But I still want to know
minimal canvas.
If there's value,
the leanest canvas.
The leanest canvas. If there's value,
mm-hmm.
Because if there's not, then all of it should be thrown away. Then all of it should be thrown away, and we should go back to just funding solutions, but funding them smaller, or funding different kinds of teams.
But got me thinking like first principles, right? Like, what are the first principles of
if
mm-hmm.
Yeah, if problem and customer if this thing is real, and now you're seeing a lot of programs put a lot of money into this, and a lot of energy, and a lot of so I am no longer naive enough to think that yes, of course, Ty, what you said and said much more. Mm-hmm. Much more better, smartly than I
like it.
So that part's true. We
answer,
all know that part's true. But does anyone really want a short circuit to the truth or not? Do the programs want it? Do the teams want it?
Okay. So you're onto something, I think, and I know we have to get to what problem we're solving. But this is fascinating to me because John and I, we know about the Nielsen, the math of the Nielsen number after 5, but you can only ask one question. There's only one question per investigation. Maybe what you're talking about is people asking one question that have 15 different genesis instead of having one question to one question, right? They have 15 different things that are trying to mash 15 different things into one engagement. And now they come like, that's what they told me. Oh, wait a minute. What were you really trying to understand? I was trying to say, no, that's still this big. Can you have to hold it down?
Right. So you have to hold that up. You have to hold that up in the beginning. And that's what we're saying. And if you hold it up, so that was the first part that I skipped over. You hold up X. This is what I'm saying. This is the problem, I think. And these are the people I'm going to talk to. Okay. Now that's the planning piece. Now someone else is saying, did they talk to the person that they said they were going to talk to? Did they ask the right questions? And when they listen to the data, did they not is it interesting? Did the person in an unbiased way, after being say that they had the original?
Yes, I have that problem.
On a one-to-one, one interview, end-to-end loop. And then once the circuitry is then you can do it 1,000 different times. Then you can go back and do it for the 15 other things. But either they're intentionally going out and talking to their friends, just so they get a good answer. They're intentionally asking leading, don't you want this, or unintentionally asking leading questions. Just so either because they don't know any better, or because they do know better and they need to put it in a deck.
Yeah.
Or they are getting it and they just fucking like not listen and make again. But I think you can finally close the loop at a per interview basis. Yes, you have to set it up. And so there are off ramps to this. So yes, if there's another problem worth solving, that's interesting, and it starts a new cycle. So that's why I set it up with the false positive, because for a false positive, all it has to do is not match the problem. There are other, then it's not, then you still have pivot persevere. It's still a decision. It's still separate from the outcome.
I know, John, we've been on this, but I do want to say this, and I'm going to stop on this, and then we can move on. That I think that this, John, as the scientist of the three of us, that this is a clear call to combine science and art, right? Because basically what you've laid out, Adam, is a scientific method that we have bastardized to make sure that we can sell stuff.
That's where I was going with the first principles. Like we've got 3 variables we're testing, and can we reduce that uncertainty through one experiment?
I tell you right now, every time I talk to a startup, when I'm and they're like, how many things you gonna talk about? If you have more than one thing, like John, we used to remember we get people to do their value proposition. If it had too many ends or commas, you testing way too much stuff. If you're like, and we're gonna do this, and we can do this, and we can do this, or this and comma, and this and comma, you get past 1 or 2, you're done.
All right, so I know you didn't watch my movie reference, which we'll save for another time. We'll talk about this next week after we run the Thursday call. But as far as testing way too many variables, there's a super cool thing at a science museum about making the ball get to the ball. I'll pull the video next week. But all right, I've said enough.
So, John, what problem are you solving?
Aside from Adam?
Hey, join the list, buddy.
Get in line.
I mixed. Yeah, get in line. Yeah.
Let's see. Professionally, it's communication. So just because you have the right answer doesn't mean everyone gets it. And that's something I've been fighting with this week, trying to convince stakeholders of just a new way of doing business. And when you think you've told them, you haven't told them enough. I heard a good phrase years ago that for change management and communication, communicate, and communicate some more. And when you are tired of communicating it, that's the point when people start listening or people start getting it. and I forget that. So here I am professionally. I think I've said it multiple times in multiple forums, and yet people are still coming back with the obvious questions that were covered 2 weeks ago. But hey, you know what? Keep going, put a smile on your face, and please the customer. And you, Ty, what problem are you solving this week?
Beside the fact that I'm still covered. I'm on the bench. I still got paycheck and a half or whatever, and then I got healthcare, blah blah blah. I got money. I need something to do. Something that is trying to find something that combines what I am really good at, which is pulling together systems of people and ideas and get them to see. So I have some things in the hopper to make it happen. So so that's my professional. My personal is problem solving. Getting enough mulch to finish out my. I got still out some yard work I got to do. Now that the temperature is not 3 degrees from hell, I can actually go outside and do it.
It's been warm lately.
Oh my God! So there we are. That's what I'm up to.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, cool. Awesome. Well, tonight I wanted to talk about my new obsession, my new favorite thing ever. I stumbled upon this little baseball team called the Savannah Bananas. And okay, they're a little goofy. Think Harlem Globetrotters for baseball. And the more I read about them and their leadership style and their experimentation style, it is 100% all about what we've been talking about. Here's an example. Here's just a little clip where they were recently in a sold-out Nationals Park in Washington, D.C., just about a week or two ago. And you can see the style. It's a little goofy. It's a little fun. As we're talking about in the green room, they are not merely a baseball team. In fact, their owner flat out says we're an entertainment company, right? You look at like movies like The Founder, right? McDonald's is not a fast food company. It's a real estate company. Once you understand what business you're in, then it pivots and it shapes the rest of your strategy. And so it's just fascinating to see the fun, the excitement. And we're going to talk a little bit about kind of how they're different and really how they're using a lot of the techniques for customer obsession, not just customer first, not just, not just listening to the customer, but really the owner actually wrote a book called Fans First, right? How to create like obsessed fans for your product. Mm-hmm. Which is a lot different. It's a whole step forward. It's like Disney plussing things up one level above just having a customer.
I remember when there used to be Circuit Cities, and people would flash and pass, right?
Is that where you bought the Jerky Boys CD?
Adam, is that where you got it? But people would sit outside and just line up to get the next iPhone.
Yeah.
Right? That's when you have obsessed, completely obsessed with the product. So yeah, that's the association I had just real quick. So you going to lead us out on this conversation?
Sure, why not?
All right.
So in his book Fans First, the owner, whose name is Jesse Cole, really fascinating guy. If you go search him on YouTube, you can hear him talk for hours. He's very high energy, and brings you a very good storyteller.
Yellow tuxedo guy?
Yeah, the yellow tuxedo guy. You can't miss him because that's his brand. Branding is everything, right? He's all in. You know, he's the guy. He does summarize some of his obsession in the book to the 5 E's to create an extraordinary experience. So let's walk through those 5 E's, right?
Sounds
Number
good.
1,
Let's do it.
eliminate friction. We've talked about friction on this show, right? And, you know, whenever there's a process, because they started out as a traditional baseball team that had all the bugs and warts and everything that comes with buying a baseball team of, you know, the food lines were long and the ticket process was slow. And this was, you know, how do you do that? Well, they did a very like lean, you know, agile kind of approach where they would actually obsess over the friction, like, go out and stand in line with people as they're buying hot dogs and measure with a stopwatch how long it takes. Measure how long, like how complicated it is to pay, how complicated it is to buy tickets, and obsessed over the friction, right? So the way that I think about that too is if you're looking at value propositions, right? You look at the value proposition canvas where a customer has a job to be done, enjoy a baseball game, but there's pains that go with it and then there's gains. So before you can create gains, like you got to eliminate friction. You got to have pain relievers. You got to look at the pains that are there, that it takes too long to do this. This is boring, right? We need to change this part of the game and obsess over that. So they spent a lot of time making that whole process as close to frictionless as possible.
Who decided? This is my original. I'm glad I'm glad I'm consistent at least, because this wasn't even the challenge I had coming into. I'll save that one for later. But who decides what? Obviously, it should be the customer, but it sounds like it's almost predetermined. Like, yes, I don't want to be annoying. I think like waiting to go to the bathroom or waiting to get a hot dog probably is a problem. But like boring, you mentioned, and I'm sure we'll get into this later. But like boring to some is a feature, not a bug, right? And so we know that we're going to get into it. We know that he's what was the word where you like intentionally, not bifurcation, but not alienating, but where you're segmenting your audience, he's intentionally polarizing, and it's not for the people who enjoy the nostalgia, right? Like where boringness is a feature. It's for the rest of those people. Right. But I think that that's something we need to address, right? To be like, who's you're just standing in line and counting. You know, I always talked about the difference between a data point and a problem, right? Like you see a million pitches. I think Ty, I don't even remember if it was in the green room or if we were live. When you're seeing a million startups will use data. Like people sit in their car commuting for 90 minutes was a huge one, and so now they're starting. But it's like, yeah, but they're not unhappy. They're listening to podcasts. Like people are waiting in line, but they're checking their phone, they're sending a work email, like whether that's good or bad. Like, so the existence of data versus a problem to me is still an interesting thing. Now, obviously this guy's, I love, the kids and I, the family, we went to a not quite as extreme but a more streamlined version. Jimmy John's Field up in Michigan, also doing a great streamlined service, great user experience, but different. Like it's not, it's still baseball. The food is great. It's geared toward the kids, so someone did usability around making it kid friendly, not necessarily solving the boring, but still just as long. Anyway,
so to the boring part though, they not only combining with like standing in line, they actually timed when people were leaving the ball games.
Yes, I think that's an interesting one.
Because that's when your customer leaves, and that's a huge problem when your customer's walking out the door.
Yes, I think that was
Mhm.
an interesting. I remember. I think
Mhm.
one of the first. I don't remember if it was TikTok or YouTube, but I remember when I watched that video that he had me. I'm not just going negative the whole time. I think
Yeah, no,
solving many
good point.
features and just assuming that it's a problem can backfire. I'm not obviously
Sure.
hasn't in this case,
Yeah, there's if you
but
use
the one
caution.
metric that mattered. Yes, they're leaving. I was like, all right, yeah,
That's a big one.
we got
That's
it.
a one metric that matters.
should we consider friction in context? And here's why.
I think so.
So John is a huge, for everybody online, he is a huge Disney aficionado. I almost called him a geek, but he's an aficionado.
Disney dad, yeah, sure.
Disney dad, and has been there. And by the way, for those online, he ain't just for the kids. I've heard him talk about some of the rides, and like, oh my god,
There's my lightsaber right there. Just
see,
so you know.
see, I ain't joking, right? But I didn't do the I didn't get down there to do the Star Wars one. I got there for Way of the Water. What's the one of the blue people?
Avatar.
Avatar. I got there for the Avatar, and we walked. To your point, is waiting in line a feature or a bug, right? I know that in order for me to have this experience, I'm going to have to wait. But what did they do while I was waiting? Had all of this stuff that led up to this. They took advantage of the friction to increase the user experience, right? So Adam says, yeah, they got to wait 90 minutes. Okay, so if they got to wait 90 minutes, what can I do to take advantage of that so they don't have this experience of friction, right?
That's a perfect segue into the next one. So
There you
finish
go.
your thought, because I think it's
The
spot on.
only thought that I had was a recent example is waiting for the elevator. Put a mirror there, and people are like, I don't have to wait so long because now I can check myself out. I can do little TikTok dances,
Exactly.
make sure I look good before I go to my meeting. Right.
So eliminate friction, and while you're doing that, number 2, the second E, entertain always. So one thing to think about, the friction of finding a parking spot and going into the stadium, they have parking attendants who are dressed like penguins. Why penguins? He says, I don't know, but it works. So they're still doing their job, but not only are they they're directing traffic and everything, they're entertaining because you can spot a penguin from a mile away in the parking lot, and they combine that with a little experiment of handing out like little ice pops to the kids and say, hey, be cool.
Boom. Because we know the triangle of job to be done is functional, social, and emotional.
And emotional.
Right.
So if you're not entertaining, right, even in your product, right, you have to now create those delighters. So that's where I started out with the value proposition canvas, right? Just reducing friction can be a lean fault, right? You can go Lean Six Sigma and reduce all the friction and still not provide value.
Oh,
right? Because no one gets excited when their credit card transaction goes through. If it goes smooth as butter, good. I paid. I don't care. That is not a gain creator. That is just making it easy to pay, right?
Right.
Then to create that gain, you have to go above and beyond reducing a pain or removing friction. Now you have to entertain. Now you have to plus it up. Now you have to make it exciting. Now you have to make it something that your customers experience and enjoy.
Yeah. I think this idea of entertain, amuse, and it makes me think about, again, all this stuff is in context, because if you're providing, the best, an AI service to a autonomous robot, programmer, right? How do you entertain and amuse? Maybe it's, I don't have to, it works so well that when I have the satisfaction of I press this thing or I make it happen, it actually does it. And there's nothing that I can see the result of me creating some code to execute, and it works seamlessly. And I feel this huge groundswell of, dang, I'm good. Right. So I think it's all in context, or at least has to be. So what about the third one, John? Experiment constantly. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Short one. I think entertain is a blanket. I think delight is one other way of,
Thank
of
you.
expressing.
That's a good word.
I think it's easy for people, not just me, who got bullied into this devil's advocacy. I didn't want. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think you can't. They obviously found their voice. It's easy when you see some of these success stories. The Penguin makes sense retroactively, but you can't take it too far either. Like, you're not, QuickBooks, or I don't know. I got to think of something, but like, you're not always trying to entertain. You're trying to delight. You're trying to please.
Yeah, I don't want my lawyer to show up to the courtroom in a clown suit,
Your
right?
doctor,
I mean,
your doctor, right? Exactly. You don't want even your lawyer, maybe, but like your doctor is not there. A bedside manner. But yes, you don't want. So it's not all about entertainment. Obviously, it works for this grade. And obviously,
yes.
Once you realize what you're breaking down, and what I remember hearing a long time ago about like authenticity and having your voice. Like, not everything needs to be a form. Like, MailChimp was very good at this at some point. Like, they found their voice, and things were like little details, or the fail whale from Twitter or X or whatever. Like, there are things that, yes, you need to be thoughtful about details. You need to be authentic. You need to find your voice, but you don't always need to be entertaining, just because the Savannah Bananas. But,
no, I
yes,
agree, because they are an entertainment company, not a baseball company. That's part of their shtick. But I'm glad you said a key word, right? Delight your customer, whatever that looks like.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I think delight is probably for them, because of their customer set, entertain. But if you're doing a deep tech thing, or you're doing an environmental thing, or you're doing some kind of consumer good, you always have to have delight as a key part of what you're doing, what you're building out.
But Ty and I would say, when we were coaching teams back in the day, we were like, whenever you show something to a user or customer and they go, "Oh wow, like, I didn't know you could do that," like, "Oh, that's cool," right? That's what you need to hone in on, right? That's part of delighting your customer, or always entertain. Nice. Next one. Experiment constantly. Right. Also very apropos for this podcast. They take the Jeff Bezos kind of mantra of, our success depends on how many experiments we run monthly, weekly, daily, hourly, right? And so they actually have like brainstorming sessions where, like, there's no bad ideas, right? And that's also a good facilitation technique, right? Let's just keep it all sunshine and rainbows to start, and then we'll throw darts at it later. But let's just get as many ideas out, knowing that most of them will fail, and do things like, what if we had a drone filming the game? What if we mic'd up players during the game? What if we had them dance, between bats? Like, just there's no bad ideas at first, and they constantly run experiments. Like, they do it as they practice. They do it for like alpha users, test users. They'll have a small audience, and then they'll scale it up to actually their large set of fans. So that way they can iterate and try different things.
As long as the what if is tied to something. I was gonna say, you're not gonna catch me arguing against the experiment piece, but
right.
As long as it's tied
to strategy,
then to any, and that even can sound condescending and overwhelming, but not even to strategy, like to anything. If we, because then you're gonna have to prioritize, and when it comes time to prioritize all those ideas and throw darts at them, you cannot judge an idea simply based on itself in a vacuum. It's simply impossible. It's impossible. You don't know. Even the craziest it sounds, maybe it will work. Maybe, or maybe something that sounds obvious has externalities years down the road.
Right.
So you'll never know if an idea is good or bad in a vacuum. It can only be determined relative to the expected outcome and with the context of human beings. Or
one thing I'll add too is that they're not afraid to experiment on things that may not scale.
Right.
It's interesting. I have a question about their number 3, and as well as our number 3 that we're talking about here, and it has to do with learning, right? Because learning isn't necessarily a scalable thing. It is a driver to find new ideas that may not scale, to your point. But if the intention is to learn about my world, about my environment, about the customer, about the ecosystem in which it sits, and you have leadership who has the chutzpah, right, to be able to hold that learning is sometimes not profitable but very powerful, to some alliteration around the P's, right, that you actually could, I mean, Bezos does this, right? I mean, that's part of what he does. He puts learning at the forefront. And without commentary about politics, but just about personality, Musk is he's all about learning. He will. That's what he does, right? So it's. I think it's a powerful experimenting. Just experiment creates Frankenstein's.
Right.
Right. And I don't think you want to do that. I think you want to create, beautiful gardens and wonderful opportunity.
And learning is only costly short term. Short term. It's an investment, not. So it's
Say that again. Say more about that, please. Say that definitely. Please say more about that. An investment, learning as an investment. Come on, don't you do that?
I've been leaning into more, but no, that's it. That's it. It's an investment. It's a short term. If you're using your learnings, you will be profitable. You will be probably whatever your profit is, whether it's impact or
exactly.
Money.
So I actually want to show you an example of that. So one experiment they ran was, as they were looking at reducing friction, they noticed that if you go with Ticketmaster's going to charge $10 fee on top of every ticket sold. They said, why would we do that to our customers? Right? That's like, they think they're buying a ticket and then they get slapped with $10 more than they'd already had, times however many people in their family. I got a large family, a party of 7, right? So that's just, the sticker shock at the end. That's bad. That's bad customer experience, right? So what they did was they said, to heck with Ticketmaster. We're printing our own tickets, right? We are giving up, this $10 hit for our customers' sake. And I mean, sure, I bet there's some profit sharing there between Ticketmaster and the thing, but if you do any research on Ticketmaster, not really. They're pretty evil. But again, 2 weeks ago, they filled up Nationals Park, roughly 42,000 persons a stadium, times $10 a ticket. They gave up $420,000 just on ticket fees alone. Why? Because that was profitable for the customer experience, for the fans first goal that they're trying to get to, not for dollars in their pocket. They know it's the right thing to do for their fans, so that was part of their experiment that they wanted to align to their strategy.
So this is for those that'll be watching this now, or watching this now, and who'll be watching it later on. What you said, I think, is extremely important. John and I would geek out all day long about strategy, right? And what is a good strategy, or what's a good strategic position. And the thing you said is it was bad for where they strategically were, which is fan first, right? So learning is fan first. Experimentation is fan first. Delight is fan first. And if it gets in the way of fan first, it's not good.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So all those experiments should be with that goal in mind, right?
Yep.
Fan obsession, right?
Oh.
Not just customer obsession. Number 4, related to that, those things that aren't going to scale. One of the fourth E is engage deeply.
Mm.
And so, what does this mean? This actually means listen carefully, respond creatively.
17 minutes in, what do we talk about, Adam? So it does come back up, right? Engage deeply. How do you find that thing, right?
Right. Don't just take all these data points. So they do some stuff that really doesn't scale. One example is they had seen some social media stuff about a fan that was coming to the game, and they were actually going on the night that they got engaged, right? So they didn't have all the banners and congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. so and so, right? But they found they actually had their marketing officer go and find that individual. They actually did pay for a ticket, and they were using the cameras and they were scouting the whole field to try and find this couple. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, they had engaged with a local florist and bought, about $150 worth of flowers, and actually said, hey, by the way, during in between the innings, congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. So and so, who just got engaged tonight. Put the camera on them, and then handed a bunch of flowers to him right there. Totally unexpected, right? Just because they posted something on social media. Hey, we got engaged today. We're going to go out to a banana ball game. They engaged deeply, creating an unforgettable customer experience for at least that person. And now they're lifetime fans.
So John used to say about when we were working together every day, you should know name of the dog, favorite ice cream, kids first, when they got married, kids' names. That. Yep. Why would you say that, John?
Oh gosh, yeah, because you don't know your customer otherwise, right? You're not obsessed with your customer, and so yeah, you should absolutely be able to have that relationship with your customer, not treat it much more than transactional. Hey, I asked the customer what they want. They told me what they want. You get product death cycle, right? Everything we were talking about in the green room, Adam. Right?
What's the old school when we used to do business model canvases? What's the sell in the business model canvas where it's like that was a choice for some businesses, right? Whereas like, what was it? It wasn't assets. It's not.
We had customer relationship in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Keep, grow.
So there are some. We don't have to go into it now, just for the continued theme of devil's advocacy. But there are businesses where you are intentionally not engaged. Whether it's for like that's the business you're in, and it is what it is, kind of thing. But not here. I will acknowledge, not here.
I had a thought, and we said that when you said that, it was a good thought too, but it had to do with, just leave me alone. But but it had this idea, just so I could talk myself into it for the next 30 seconds, and I'll drop it. But it really was about engaging, about knowing your customers so intimately that you can. Something about the customer intimacy, right? Mm-hmm. And really understanding what it is, and getting in their space and seeing. There's what's the Buddhist, the Japanese with Shotzen, having this beginner mind and really trying to hold the space that you find your customers in such a way that that it's not. This wasn't it, but there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. And I used to say with sympathy, when I teach sympathy, like, where do you find sympathy? In a dictionary between SHIT and syphilis. You don't want either one of those, right? You want empathy. You want somebody who can really sit with the pain that you're experiencing, your delight, your hopes, your wishes, your desires in such a way that when you get this, you give it to them, you're like, they go, how did you know?
Mm-hmm. Based on that, another example that that the owner has mentioned is that there was a large family. A wife had bought tickets for the whole family of 5 or 6 kids, right? And comes to find out, the gentleman, the husband, called to get ready to cancel his tickets, and they were asking why. I said, well, my wife just passed away. And so she bought the tickets, so it was kind of the last big purchase she did for the family, and she passed away unexpectedly. So the owner said to this customer account manager, said, hey, what do you think we should do? Right? We're fans first. What do you think we should do? And so to engage deeply, what they did was they said, you know what? Don't worry about it. Come to the game. This, of course, is after all the dust had settled with that sudden shock to the family. Come to the game. They came first. They were first in line. When they came in, got seats all the way down by the dugout. The team came out and actually met with the family alone for half an hour before the game. Signed hats, signed baseball, signed bats, right? And just got to know them deeply, right? And then, the family stayed for the entire length of the game, because they track all that too. And at the end of the game, they presented the family with a jersey with the wife's name on the back and the number of years that they were married. Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's right. And so huge emotional way to engage deeply. Definitely doesn't scale, but I mean, they had fans for life. They deeply care. They're, you know, they are in so much empathetic with their customer set that it's beyond the transactional aspect. Again, that's why the big takeaway from this is like, translate it back to your own business or your own product that you're launching. Is like, you have to get beyond just the transactional nature of, oh, I need to scale this up and my customer lifetime cost is this. And no. Like, if you love your customer, don't take it too far, but if you love your customer, then you will get positive returns on the back end.
I know what it was, and this actually, what you're leading to, leads to the fifth E, which is empower action. And this is where I was going. And it was about transactional versus transformation, right? That when you do these, you have a transformative experience with your customer, right? You have customer for life. That it's not just I give you this and I take, because then you're racing to the bottom around how do you maintain customer experience? How do you maintain that customer? But if you have a transformational experience with the customer because you've done all this, you delight and you experiment and you learned about them, they're like, even in bad times when it gets hard, because economics goes like this, you don't lose customers. I see we have a comment.
Yeah. So just to rewind a bit, in engaging deeply, at what point is there a negative return on the time spent versus finding another customer? Absolutely, right. That is a balance to the devil's advocate point, right? Is yes, we're talking about some things that might not scale, right? And so you have to be prudent, right, in which ones you decide to go after. Which again, I think is to Ty's point about, well, if you know what your strategy is and what value looks like, then it helps shape the experiments that you run and the way that you engage deeply.
Well, I would say also that if you're engaged deeply, you know when it's time to stop, when they're no longer a customer, right? And it's okay, because now even as you disengage, you get a negative return. You're still creating a positive experience for your customer. He's like, I'm not the right person for you anymore, but they're over there because I understand what I can no longer give you.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's obvious, when you don't even love your customer in the first place, or when you love that and it's unrequited, right? So like this going out of your way, you're still pushing something on them that they don't want.
Right.
But so, and it's not creating value. So you're going, that's like, this the one way. Yeah, there's a judgment call there. Some people could argue that it's just not worth it. The PE guys will come in and say, what are we doing? That would be the first thing that would get cut for sure. But yeah, maybe you have a certain amount of budget or a certain amount of time that goes into the delight. That's a fun job where taking customers that you love and you're trying, like, there has to be
chief fun officer. Yeah,
maybe a finite pool, a finite budget, or for that stuff. And then
sure, you're gonna have O&M, but
there's no negative returns because you're using it up every time and you're just trying to maximize. There's only upside, right? Like, you're already, I don't want to say you're writing it off, but it's like if you have a finite piece of the budget or personnel or resources, and there's never a negative return, then it's only because you're never losing. That was already those resources
it was budgeted for.
Accounted for, right? So it's never, if you look at it that way, never a negative return. There's only, as long as you love your customer and as long as you know that that's just, let's say, the cost of doing business, but that's budgeted in, like you said, then it's only a question of which one do we do? Like, how big can we get?
How big do you go?
Value, and how do we make this even better than the last time and even more meaningful and more impactful? I think that's the way you have to look at it. But yes, I of course, I was even thinking of the same, but I had already gone negative on too many, but yes, I was thinking the same thing.
Adam, are you the negative Nelly tonight?
Well,
Jesus.
Only tonight.
Okay, I'm just wondering. Jesus.
He's gonna be Angel's advocate next week.
Yeah, I'm not. Just wanted to see what it would take for John to mute me.
It's going to take a lot more than that. But yeah, final E, empowering action. What comes to mind here is basically how do we just get people out of their heads and start doing? One thing that Ty and I always used to do when we coach teams is, when they'd say, "Oh, well, I'm thinking about running this experiment, but it might take a couple weeks." And you know what I'm going to say? I'd say, "What can you do tomorrow? Like, what can you do by the end of the day today?" Well, it's not perfect and it's going to be a little messy. Great, go. We're done. We're done talking. Get out and go, right? Because I'd rather have bad data early than the perfect data late. And there you go. There's the devil. There's the devil. That's
Come on. Look at him. He's like
totally dismissing the first 11 minutes of this episode. But
you want bad data. You want less than perfect data.
I want less than perfect data.
You don't want to start relying on. I know. Yeah.
No, but from a leadership perspective, right? You want to bias towards action.
Yes, for sure. Sure.
Yeah. I think when I look at this idea of empower action, particularly, let's say in this case, I think, John, you actually talked about it. The CEO comes down to the customer service, like, what do you think we should do? As long as it's covered by our fan first, idea, what do you think we should do? The most contemporary one beyond this that we know of is Zappos. That the people on Zappos were authorized, empowered to make decisions to make sure that the customer is happy, which could be, I don't think I ever bought a pair of shoes off of Zappos, but whatever that might be, or not even Zappos, Nordstrom's. Man, we don't take tires, but I take these. Okay, I guess we're taking tires back today.
Well, what's the agent? What did we do last week? Leap? What is it? Leap? What was our 4-letter last week? Best show on agency.
Oh, Bart.
Yes.
Bart.
Leap?
Yep, Bart. Yep.
Leap.
How do I find?
Way off.
Yeah, I was like, Leap. Like, what is he talking about?
I had to take a risk. I didn't have my notes, and I knew we'd get there. Yeah,
but I'm glad you were empowered to action. So good.
Yes, I was empowered. Yes, Bart agency. I knew there was an A. I knew the A was third.
Authority.
No, it's not third.
Boundary authority is the second one. We'll help you out. BART. Just kidding. No, John, I appreciate you bringing this up. I think it was a good way to kind of talk about some really good stuff by using a contemporary product. Baseball team.
Exactly. It's different. It's weird. It's fun, right? And they are in the entertainment business, right? So not everything can translate one for one. But again, I want people to think a little creatively about not creating customers, creating fans. And the way you do that is really by obsessing and loving the customer, not just treating it like a transactional. How can I solve their pains and gains? How can I, run an experiment to increase, revenue, right? Don't think of your customers as dollar signs first, right? Because that will only impact the way you shape your experiments. And so if you want to engage with customers, you want to create, solutions that the customers love, then you absolutely have to have that empathy first. So again, in summary, there's 5 E's are, let me go back to the top. We have eliminate friction, entertain always, experiment constantly, engage deeply, and empower action.
Boom. Love it. It's good stuff, man. Good stuff. Thank you, John.
All right.
Good call.
All right, Adam, final thoughts.
I'll do 2. I front loaded this one, so I'll pass. Thursday.
The gentleman yields his time.
We'll see you Thursday to see if we can lock in this experiment once and for all.
I'm ready for Thursday, by the way. It's already in the thing, man.
All right, now I knew you would. What do we got?
We're ever gonna get David Bland on?
Next week.
Yeah, I'm empowering you to action now. Time. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. It's connected, not directly connected, but it's about AI. I was talking to a CEO the other day. We were kind of just tossing some ideas around. He said, "I'm interested in a different AI, and it has to do with what we're talking about." He said, "I don't want to talk about where the 5 E's equals, I don't know, E. That's what the user put down there. E. He said, I'm interested in accretive impact, which I thought I had to look it up. And so accretive impact is transformational impact. It's not transactional impact. And so the part that I'm walking away with is combining that conversation with tonight is when you have really good customer centrality, I mean, you are customer centric to hit it out, you create accretive hockey stick impact with your customers. It's just not like one for one. I give them something, they give me something. I give them something, they give me something. I charge them more money for Ticketmaster. Yeah, they get a good baseball product or not, right? But when I create fans, I get fans for life.
Mm-hmm.
Compound interest is versus
Yep.
simple interest, and I think that's
Exactly.
and that's when we keep going back. And so now here I'll take back when we talked about learning is investing. If you're doing the E's, if you're creative, if you're engaging with your fans and your customers, if you're thinking about value and you're learning, those are all things that lead to compound interest and not simple interest. And those are transformative, not transactional. Like it's all about compound interest. Yeah, trust.
Good and trust. Yeah, well said.
All
yeah,
that
so
stuff.
Yeah, for me, this is also fun to dig into because, again, I'm a recovering engineer. Like, you start me out like I'm all about efficiencies and optimizations and streamlining processes, leading me into the agile world, which is like getting more iterative feedback in front of a customer. But again, great products delight the customer, right? Great products really create fans. So I think it's something that is too often missed. You have to have the right brain and the left brain working together, right? You have to have the efficiencies and the process and the experimentation, and you have to have the why you're doing it, the whole Simon Sinek, right, driving factor that makes you want to like obsess, lose sleep over how can I make this even more engaging, more exciting for solving the customer's problem. Not just I filled out my canvas and they're probably I've had 10 people validate that they have this problem. No, like what really, how do they feel about the problem? How do they feel when they use your solution? Like that's something you can't always do ones and twos and dollars on, right? You actually have to experience it, engage deeply, be empathetic, and go all in. And I think that's a great aspect to start looking forward to going forward. So that was fun. Awesome. We'll see you next week. Peace out.